This is Between Hooksets. I'm Jason Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew.
What's up, buddy? A little different background for you than normal. You didn't have much room for that hook set tonight.
No, I'm pretty close to everything. I'm on the kitchen table on Lake Oahe that I built.
You built Lake Oahe?
But no. Oh yeah.
Oh.
I wish I built the table. Did I show you that? What is that? There must be a glitch.
You got out fishing today, huh?
Yeah, we finally had weather, and that's what it's all about. It isn't about the fact that I just didn't or couldn't or whatever go out fishing. It's all about the fact that we actually had decent weather. And the older I get, I don't want to compromise myself. But my buddy Kirk's like, let's do this, and we're going to try tomorrow too. I don't know what's going to happen, but that don't tell anybody. But the walleye are on fire on Lake Oahe, and they're just nice fish. They're fat.
They're healthy, man. They are super healthy.
Yeah, so honestly, it's 8 fish. Who cares? I'm just kind of having fun. But look at how tubby those things are. I cleaned Kirk cleaned the fish because he's got his way, and I cleaned the cleaning table. And again, my hands it was like I was making pie crust, and my hands were full of Crisco.
Yep.
I mean, just those things are just greasy fat. And these 15-inch walleye look like 17s. I caught a 19 and 13 16ths to be exact. And because we wanted to make sure that we wanted our 2 overs, right? Just for fun, just in case we didn't want to fiddle with the fake 20.
Yeah.
And that I was like, when I was bringing it up, I thought it was a catfish because it just felt way different. These 15, 16, 17-inch walleye are fighting like mad.
Yeah.
They get serious shoulders on them, and it's a ton of fun. So if you want to come to Lake Oahe and do some walleye fishing, please don't. There are enough people here already. Save a few fish for me. So,
yeah, it's been even down here by Pier you're up in the Whitlocks area, and down here by Pier the fish are healthy.
Yeah.
The fish I think they're a little easier in your area to get, but the fish are biting, and it's going to be fun. Lake Hawaii usually starts turning on the southern end, within these last couple weeks, and it has really came on. So pretty excited. I've had several comments over the last couple weeks about what the weights could look like in the Gov Cup, and we could see some big bags.
Well, we're going to have some hot weather. I think 90-something next Tuesday, maybe into Wednesday, which obviously we're still, a good month away from the Gov Cup. Well, actually less than a month, right? Oh, no, right on.
Right at a month. The rules meeting is 1 month from today.
Yeah, right on, because tomorrow's the 20th. Today's Juneteenth, so we've got a holiday there. But, yeah, so, the crazy thing is the water out here, when I was fishing, I fished it 10 days ago. It was 54 to 57 degrees. Today it was 61 to 64 degrees. So the water's cool.
Yeah. The wind's been blowing, man. It keeps stirring it up.
Yeah, well, it does. And which, really is fine because I think it's keeping a lot of those fish in shallower water. Otherwise, if we were at 70 degrees like we would be already because July 4th is coming up too soon, we'd have hot water and they would be in the deeper water and they would be harder to catch. So really things have just kind of turned out perfectly and it's been kind of nice. So anyway, we could talk and talk and talk. I'm going to pop up our guest because I neglected to put the little thinger in there before I left for the river. And there you go. Brian, we want to welcome you to the show, but hang on. I've got a special deal.
I want to be a cowboy. I want to be a cowboy.
Hold on, let me get my 6-shooter out.
I didn't even know that one was coming, Woody. Well, tonight, welcome, Brian. we head out west to, I don't know many people know what goes on out there. And when they see Wyoming Walleye Stampede, I think a lot of the world is kind of just overlooks it. And some amazing fisheries. You guys been running tournaments for, you told me earlier, 16 years. But before we get into all that, let's get a little backstory on Brian Woodward. You can see there is trophies behind you like crazy. And let's get a little backstory on where you came from, who you are, and how you got into running tournaments.
Well, that's a really good question. It can be a really long story, but in the short of it, I had the opportunity to move up to Wyoming back in 2003. And of course, and growing up in Colorado, I grew up fishing trout on streams and a little bit of bass fishing, a little bit of cat fishing, but really not a whole lot of walleye. With the exceptional trip to Canada, we'd go to Northwest Ontario and go up there for a week at a time. And so I've had some experience fishing walleyes, just we didn't have that opportunity close to where I was living in Colorado. So once I moved up into Wyoming, kind of an untouched secret up here that nobody really talked about. It was, this state is pretty much driven with trout fisheries, especially the North Platte system. A lot of drift boats, a lot of guide services, that kind of stuff. And the trout fishing is phenomenal. But equally impressive is the walleye fishing.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've seen pictures from out there, and I've had a chance years and years and years ago to go out there and fish Boysen. And wow, the walleyes, you talk about have shoulders and fight. You guys got some out there.
What's really interesting is, Wyoming as a whole only has about 500,000 people population wise. So we've got a lot of great reservoirs, and we have a lot of people that come in from out of state, but we have a lot of reservoirs that are just kind of remote. They're a little harder to get, a little higher elevation stuff. And if you want to catch a personal best walleye, I mean, we've got some reservoirs just around Casper area, Pathfinder Reservoir, Seminole Reservoir. Those two there can definitely produce a personal best for anybody any day of the week.
Kurt sent me a picture. He said, hey, this guy's a walleye guy. This guy can catch fish. I was a little embarrassed, so I tried to Photoshop it to fix it a little bit there because I'm like, well, that's an ugly walleye. I'm like, we got to make that look better. So I tried to fix it. It was a 5-second fix. I'll try to do better next time. But we had a nice picture of you catching some nice walleye. So that's a Wyoming walleye then, right?
That is, yeah. That's actually one that came out of Pathfinder up in the river system in the spring, and they're nice and green, healthy, just great looking fish, especially on that body of water.
Brian has to come to South Dakota to catch catfish. We fished the NTC together a couple of years ago, and we were up on Moose Flats, and we were struggling. I mean, the whole tournament struggled. I mean, when you guys were winning, making the top 25 with 2 fish a day,
right.
The system wasn't good. But he goes, I'm going to go the Wyoming route. And I go, what's that? And he goes, I'm going the Wyoming technique. And you put a crawler on a jig. And I said, you're catching a catfish. And he goes, oh no. And not even like 5 seconds later, he's like, oh, I got one. Yep. It was that catfish.
Yeah. We did catch plenty of catfish that day.
They are heartbreakers, aren't they? And they're so walleye-like. Today I caught a 19 and 13/16 inch walleye that I swear was a catfish.
Yeah.
Just the way it acted. It was just odd, but
it's good up until the roll, until they get the roll in there, then you're like, okay, it's a catfish.
But yeah, so how did you get into the tournament scene and eventually running and starting the Wyoming Walleye Stampede?
Well, it boils down to putting my money where my mouth was. I was fishing the Wyoming Walleye circuit since 2005. Didn't have a lot of success starting on. I mean, a lot to learn. I mean, I didn't know much about. I knew a lot about catching fish, but I didn't know a lot about catching tournament quality fish. And the partner that I had, he was a retired guy, and he'd park his boat on shore, and hell, half the time we never even started the big motor. We just get on the kicker or the bow mount, and we just start jigging and just working the bays that were close to camp. And as it went on, we actually became lucky enough, I guess, to win a couple of tournaments down at Glendo Reservoir, which is about an hour south of Casper. And we won a tournament in June with 104 boats, and then that qualified us for the championship, and then we actually won the championship as well. After that year, I was asked not to come back because he had the previous owner had sent out a survey about kind of, what do we like, what do we not like, and I was all about trying to gain team numbers and to get people to participate, and the numbers were dropping about 10% a year, and so I sent off a bunch of bullet points of kind of what I thought should be done, and he didn't take it very well. He said, "Go find somewhere else to fish," and
no kidding.
So I just said, well, man, I think these are all really good ideas. I think we should run a tournament. And my partner, Mitch Bowers, me and him jumped on, and we sat down at a table and we kind of brainstormed a bunch of different names and what we wanted to do. And that puts us to today where, we're, got a lot of different divisions and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how it happened. That was in 2008. In 2009, I ran my first tournament down at Glendo with the format that we're still running, really without very many changes leading up to now. We had 93 boats that first event. I needed a place to go fish because I'm not going to stop fishing. So I went and fished the Masters Walleye Circuit, and pretty humbling experience there too. I fished the first event at Mobridge, and I think that tournament was an early spring tournament, and I think there was 43 boats, and I think there was 13 fish caught during the event. We pre-fished for an entire week, caught one carp and one bass. The water conditions were horrible. We just figured we just didn't know what we were doing, but there was a lot of people that didn't know what they were doing. It's just the conditions were bad. The second event was up at Devil's Lake, and we kind of finished middle of the pack. We caught fish, learned how to run slip bobbers and that kind of stuff. And then the third event was at Lake Waubay over in Waubay, South Dakota. And we pre-fished it for a full week. We did every presentation that we pretty much knew outside of trolling. And all week long, we caught 15 and a half, 16-inch fish. And at the time, that reservoir or that lake had a 2-fish limit. I don't know what it is now, but I think it was 1/22 and then one under. And the first day we came in with 15 and a half inch fish, and we were in 36th place out of 44 boats. And I told my partner, I said, we just can't keep doing this. This is insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. We can't do that. So he was in a lot of pain. He was an older gentleman, had some shoulder problems. And so he said, well, whatever you want to do, we'll do it. So I sat back in the boat and I tied up a bunch of trolling rods and picked out some colors of crankbaits that I thought were going to be good, and started trolling around Duck Island. And before you know it, there's a 26.5-inch fish on the board. And we're like, holy cow. Then we catch a 21 3/4. And then we get stopped by a weigh boat. And the guy at the weigh boat says, oh yeah, check your fish. And he opened up my live well and he said, holy cow, that's the biggest. I've lived here all my life. I've never seen a fish that big. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I just figured we sucked, And I said, I don't care about the big one. Measure the other one. Make sure it's an under. He goes, it's a perfect under. So we let those guys go. We turned around, started pulling boards again, caught another 26. And then we ended up putting a 16-incher in the box and finishing an hour early in the day, and ended up winning the tournament by 4 pounds. So it just everything kind of just worked out right. And so that kind of got me into fishing the MWC. And that following January, my partner passed away of a heart attack. And so Rick Walters called me up and he said, hey, sorry about the loss of your partner. If you want to continue fishing MWC events, I'll fish them with you. So I had gotten a call from Cabela's. Cabela's put both of us on their pro staff, and then we continued fishing the MWC. Had some pretty good success. We qualified for the World Walleye Championship in 11 and 12. We took second place both of those years. First year, we legitimately just lost it. We were 1 fish short of a limit. Then the second year, like they do to make the stage and make the big presentation, they knew we had good weight. We were held back for about 2 hours before we could get on stage, and I just remember going in my live well and just picking up hands of bait fish that those fish had coughed up, and we ended up losing that tournament by the weight of a penny, 0.08 ounces.
Yeah, that's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, and so while I'm running these tournaments, I also decided that after running that first one in 2009, that we were going to break off and do a full circuit for the Wyoming Walleye Stampede. And it's been gangbusters ever since. Trying to pick reservoirs at the best times, best locations. People want to catch fish. And the successful part is that our numbers are great. We've had 2 tournaments this year. We had 144 boats the first one and 141 boats for the second event. We have a third event coming up at Boise the end of the month on the 29th. In fact, our deadline is next Wednesday. But we're looking at about 80 boats right now. We'll probably be somewhere between 85 and 90 is my guess, which is good for an outlying reservoir like it is. But Boise is some great country. You got the Wind Rivers in the back. Kurt, you've been there. It's beautiful scenery. I mean, problem is we got a lot of snow on those mountains up there. And so right now the guys are fighting a ton of runoff where it's coming in there at like 8,000 feet per second right now.
Wow.
So it kind of takes some of the pre-fishing out of the game for the guys because it's going to change a whole lot in the next 2 weeks. But that's kind of how we got where we're at. And we've really kind of listened to the anglers. We have a kind of advisory panel, a committee that we kind of go to and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or somebody wants to do this. We get sponsors calling us that, hey, I'd like to sponsor something. What do you have available? That has worked out great. We've got a family division now. We've got a young guns division. We've got a dinosaur division, and we've got a, did I say family?
Yep.
Yeah. So we got a family. What am I looking at? Family, poor boys, dinosaur, and a young guns. So it kind of, what's nice about it is that you don't have to be a pro. You don't have to have a 400 Verado on the back of your boat. You can come out there in one of the smallest 15, 14 foot boats and still be competitive and still qualify for some of these other divisions in a subset of guys. So, if you're in the poor boys division, you're competing against, 12 other boats probably for at least to get your money back for your entry fee anyways. So all these extra sponsored added money, we generally are paying out somewhere between 92 and 94% cash payout.
So what qualifies you? Obviously, we know family, young guns is under a certain age, dinosaurs over a certain age. But how do you qualify for the po' boy division? It started off with being in a less than 125 horse motor. But as the days and the years have gone on, there's not very many people that are driving, 60 horse or 90 horse motors. So now it's anybody in 150 or less. So 150 horse or less. Young guns is having one participant under 35 years old on your team. And then dinosaur division, if your combined age is over 100, you qualify for the dinosaur division. And then what is the other one we got there? The family.
The family division's family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Kurt, you and I would fit in the 100, the old timers division, wouldn't we?
Maybe close. Yeah. I mean, we get there.
Yeah.
So, but you guys do a completely different style from what my anglers are used to on the whole tournament aspect.
Right.
From, your takeoff to how you weigh your fish and go into all of them different details, because I find it very intriguing and the reason why you do it.
Sure. So, we started this, it's a progressive live release is what our Game and Fish calls it. And I think it was originally set up really out of Montana with a length to weight conversion. We do it for a handful of reasons. A lot of it has to do with just our fisheries and trying to take care of our fisheries and a conservation minded effort. The Game and Fish allows us to run it that way, but it's really great for the public perception. I've taken a lot of what we're doing with the Stampede, from tournaments that I've fished, including yours, Kurt. I take the best of the best and try to incorporate those into what we're doing. And I also take things that I didn't like seeing in other tournament circuits. Not to knock anybody, but when I fished the MWC, when Danny Palmer was there, you know, they always had a weigh boat on the water. You know, they always had somebody, like when you're up at Devil's Lake, you could be all the way back in Pelican, or you could be on the other end of Tiger, and there's a chance that somebody's going to pull up to your boat and want to check your fish and, you know, make sure that you're doing things legal. And there was some presence on the water. To me, that was really important. Now, Kurt, it'd be really difficult for you because you got guys running 45 miles each way on a body of water.
We have 5 check boats out during the Governor's Cup,
right?
You know, but it is, you know, we check probably maybe 40% of the field in 2 days,
right?
You know, and we split that lake up in, you know, 3 sections, and I usually have one guy go south, and then one guy works north of Spring Creek, and then the rest focus Bushes and Cheyenne.
Yeah. Our bodies of water are much smaller, you know, from end to end. Glendo is usually 12 miles long or so. And not nearly that wide. So it's pretty easy for us to cover a body of water with 5 boats and, you know, have some presence on the water and to have that interaction with the angler. So we also do a single file launch. So instead of having some guy on shore just calling off a number and sending the boats off, I basically get out in front, this old MWC style. I get out in front, drag the boats half a mile down the lake. Usually it takes me about 20 minutes to line everybody up. And then I just turn around the opposite direction. And if you want to see a good example of that on our website, on the walleyestampede.com, I've got a drone video that kind of shows the check-in process and how we launch them. But it's a really safe way of doing things. You know, we used to have like the starter boat would just stay stationary and the boats would come by them. And before, you know, you hit the 5th boat, you know, you got waves rocking you and the guy in the front's trying to take pictures and he's getting rocked off the boat. So this way I can just go opposite direction of the boats. And as soon as I go past them, then they can give it the onion. They're single file. There's no crisscrossing. It's, you know, been a really safe and efficient way of launching boats. So typically we can launch 140 boats in about 9 or 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So we bring them back at the end of the day in three flights, usually half-hour increments. And it takes us about 15 minutes to get everybody in and out. Everybody has to check in at the marina at the end of the day. We have someone checking to make sure boats are in on time, that everybody has been checked in. And then throughout the day, it's an on the water check or weigh-in process. And so it's not really a weigh-in, but it's a length to weight conversion. So we'll have 3 stationary locations on every reservoir that we run, so that if a guy's going from point A to point B and they're gonna pass a weigh boat, they can just swing in there. Someone from the weigh boat will jump in that boat. They'll bring their hog trough. The angler takes the fish out of the live well. We measure the fish on one side, measure it on the other side, pinch the tail, get a confirmation from the angler. It was 23.5. Yep, 23.5. Fish goes right back in the water wherever we're weighing the fish at. The scorekeeper writes down the score, verifies that score, and then the anglers keep going to fish. So our game and fish, we have pretty liberal limits out here in Wyoming, but it's 6 fish per person. However, it is, once a fish goes in a live well, our game and fish considers that in possession. So even though it's going to be released, they can't just keep putting fish after fish after fish, you know, on a scorecard. So you have 12 fish to play with in terms of like a coaling scenario. But again, you still have to make the decision, you know. So maximum of 5 fish in a live well, no more than 2 hours at a time. We'll have those 3 stationary positions, and then myself and Mitch, my partner, will be in separate boats, and we kind of focus on parts of the lake that have the majority of traffic. So we're just randomly going down shorelines, looking for boats. If we see something suspect, maybe we'll go check them out. If an angler calls us and says, "Hey, I think they're running too many lines out of their boat," you know, we'll run and we'll check that kind of stuff out. We don't generally have too many problems, but we're there and we can address those issues if we need. But it's a really clean process. You know, there's I think most of the time the weights, the measurements are as good as they can get. You know, probably no different than having extra slime in a weigh bucket or whatever. And generally, you know, people aren't losing the tournament by 1/8 of an ounce or 8/100ths of an ounce. So, but yeah, it's a really clean system. we do require everybody to check in at the marina or wherever that final day check-in is, just to make sure everybody is in on time and accounted for, in case somebody had a problem with, a boat problem or, whatever the case might be. We'll get off the water, and if someone hadn't checked in, we'll be making phone calls, make sure that, they didn't just leave early or whatever the case was. So
I like that.
Yeah. So, and then when you do that, obviously you can weigh. Do you have a slot in Wyoming? Is it?
No, that's why sometimes our weights look good. I mean, overly good. The length to weight conversion is pretty conservative overall. A 15-inch fish is 1.25 pounds, and then there's a length to weight by girth conversion that we have plugged into the computer, whereas a 30-inch fish is 10 pounds. Now we all know, like, in the spring, a 30-inch fish might be 11 pounds, and in the fall it might be 8.5 or 9. But the one thing it takes out of the equation is you're not having guys, culling fish, or, I mean, there's no slot. So we have a minimum length at Glendo, which is 15-inch minimum. We generally bump that up based on how the fishing is. At our last tournament, we measured 1,800 fish. So the fishing is phenomenal, because the guys can keep 12 fish in the course of a day on their scorecard, and then we're going to take their top 5. But because we don't have a slot like you guys have, there's a good chance that we're going to have a guy bring in a basket of 26-inch plus fish. It happens.
So how common are the 20 to 30-inch walleye out there then?
On the last event, I think there was in the 2 days 300 plus fish over 24 inches, 23 inches. Okay. So our quality of fish is great, and each reservoir has its own, I guess, tweaks about it. Glendo right now is suffering a little bit. 2 years ago, we had really bad ice conditions where we lost a lot of our shad. So we're seeing that this year's class of fish. They tend to be a little bit skinnier, but the nice part is it's a length of weight. So, whether, people are going to argue that, well, your length to weights aren't accurate. A 20-inch fish shouldn't be 3 pounds. It should only be 2.25 or whatever. It's still fair and consistent for all the anglers that are playing the game.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If everybody's weighed on the same 15-inch, 20-inch, 25-inch, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's that's the beauty of that part. We also penalize anglers for fish that can't be released. So in terms of the conservation part of it, is if a guy catches a 26-inch fish and maybe it came out of deep water, or maybe it was deep hook set, a lot of times those guys are going to immediately turn around, pick up from where they're fishing, and go and find a weigh boat and get it released so that they don't have a dead fish penalty, because we ding them pretty hard. And on a big fish, maybe doesn't seem as significant, but if you have a 20-inch fish that's normally 2.5 pounds, but you're going to get half of that weight, and it has to be part of one of your 5, now you just put basically a 15-inch fish in your box.
So you take half the weight of that link of fish if it's dead, and it's part of the 5. They can't call that fish out.
Has to be part of the 5.
That's interesting.
I mean, we really want out of the 1,800 fish that were caught last weekend, we had 7 fish that we accounted a loss of. 7 fish. That's it. So, wow. I mean, when you can walk away from a fishery and you got people, general everyday anglers that are out there for the lake, and they're like, oh boy, the lake was so busy. You guys had a tournament and you guys just killed a bunch of fish. And it's like, no, actually we didn't. The first tournament we ran in May, I think there was 2 dead fish. So, and we had like 1,600 fish caught. So it's from our standpoint, like, we're, you can't do that with any other competition. Like, you can't say I'm going to go on the biggest antelope or deer hunt and get the biggest trophy buck and then release it back to the wild.
Right.
And I've had the opportunity to take a lot of people out fishing, especially like at Pathfinder. And we can have a rule in my boat: anything over 20 inches on a guide trip goes back in the water. And it hurts a lot of guys' feelings when they catch a personal best 29 or 30. I had a guy last year with a 32.5 incher out of Pathfinder, and he's like, well, can we keep it? I said, no, we can't. He's like, he goes, is it a rule? I'm like, it's a rule of my boat. He goes, well, why is that? And I go, this fish is probably 20, 25 years old. I don't know how old it is, but it's a dinosaur. And I want to be able to catch it again. I mean, the beauty of being able to hold that fish up and go, man, this is a great fish and I have a great memory of it is way better than what it's going to taste in your deep fryer, you know?
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
and
100%.
I don't understand why guys can't wrap their head around a replica.
Yeah.
You know, you get the replica, you hang the replica on actually that is that's a real mount for a 12-pound rainbow from Lake Oahe
right.
that
Well,
my dad caught years ago. But none, which reminds me, the reason I brought that up, I want you to tell us about what's on your wall, because we always forget to ask people what's hanging on the wall, and obviously it's a trophy wall. So I want to hear more about that. But the replica fish, you get a replica, you hang it on the wall. If you need to, you dust it off. 10 years
Right.
later, you don't have to take it back to the taxidermist and have it
Right.
touched up.
right.
You know, replicas are fantastic. They're a great way to go, and they're so helpful to the resource.
Yeah.
You know, so I applaud you for doing what you do. You don't
Yeah,
have to do that, but I think it's great.
I have two fish that are mounted and it's the two behind me there.
Yep.
And that's that 26.5 and 26. And that came out of Lake Wabe. And it was a kill tournament up there, as I think all your tournaments are. And all the fish were being donated to some food bank up there. And I didn't have any inkling to even think about mounting a fish because I never had mounted a fish in my life. But the guy that was filleting the fish for the program, he said, well, would you like me to just mount or skin this out so that you can have it mounted? And I'm like, is that something we can do? And he said, absolutely. He goes, got a buddy down the street that'll do it for $6 an inch. And so
$6.
I'm like,
You better, holy cow,
Yeah.
it's like $18 an inch now.
that's like 30 here in Wyoming. Okay. So of course, me and my partner were like, yeah, heck, let's do it. You know? So we left the fish there after the tournament. And what's really special to me is that those are the two fish that me and my partner, it was the last tournament me and him got to fish together. And so I went back the following year to Lake Wabe fishing with Rick Walter, and we picked up those mounts and brought those home with us at that tournament. So to me, that's the picture of Dave up in the corner, Dave Rice.
Okay.
He was my partner for that tournament. And so we have those, and I have my South Dakota Trophy Fish Award for catching a fish over certain inches. So those are the only two I've ever caught, and they're probably going to be the only two I'll ever mount in my life because it ended up being a super special moment having those two fish to remember my fishing partner.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's awesome. And yeah, in South Dakota, unfortunately, you know, Game Fish and Parks' rule is after June 1st, we have to kill all walleyes in a tournament.
Right.
And, you know, they blame deep water hooking and, you know, but it's, to me, I've had meetings with them. It's such an archaic way of thinking, and the technology has changed and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't disagree. Deep water hooking is bad on fish. Water temps are bad on fish. You know, boat rides are bad on fish, but I think we need to relook at it in the state. And, you know, Bitter Lake, let's just pick Bitter Lake in July. That water coming out of 3 foot of water is the same temperature as your live well.
Right.
You know, like that fish you can't tell me you're killing that fish when you caught it in 3 foot of water and it's 70-degree water surface temp. You're pumping it in your boat. It's the same temperature they're living in it. But unfortunately, at the moment, we don't have those rules. And yeah, your format, like I love seeing the fish go back. That's why every possible tournament I can run and release fish, it's a release tournament.
Right.
And, you know, I remember, I think my dad and Billy Brenton, when they ran Wyoming Walleye or the Western Walleye, they did a catch and release brought to shore, and they had to put a huge system together with all these tanks. And that I don't,
there was there was still a lot of loss in that. I mean, the one at Boise that I witnessed was pretty bad.
Yeah. And I wasn't around for those days, but I just remember my dad talking about all the hoops they had to jump through to bring those fish across the stage. And, you know, part of it, you know, to me as a tournament guy, I like seeing the fish come across the stage.
Sure.
But I also like the conservation of it. So it's a double-edged sword. But what I think is really cool is you post a lot on your Facebook is you show the stats of how many 15-inch fish you measured, how
Right.
many 20s, how many, all this stuff. So you can look on the Wyoming Walleye Stampede's Facebook page and look at the events and see you got a giant Creo survey.
Right.
You can tell what that lake's looking like.
Yeah, my ultimate goal is to have Game and Fish use our data for their Creo survey instead of using gill nets. That's actually killing a bunch of walleyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that.
We have invited them multiple times to say, hey, why don't you sit one of your biologists in each one of our weigh boats? If you need to do a tagging survey measurement, we're already going to give you a measurement. But if you need to tag them or do something else with them, let's do that. Let's work together. And so that, we don't have to spend 4 days gill netting fish and losing hundreds of fish. Some of our reservoirs, well, Glendo particularly, just gets pounded with out-of-staters and just a lot of people coming up and just taking limits and limits of fish. And nothing wrong with that. But, at one point, the fishery is going to have a couple bad years of recruitment and, the fishing's not going to be good. And, we do only have a 1-day possession limit. So technically, if I've got fish in my freezer right now, I can't keep fish tomorrow if I want to go fishing. So it's 1 daily possession limit in possession at all times. But I can guarantee you that more than half of the people that fish for walleyes either don't abide by it or don't know the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know. Yeah. Right. There's two people do whatever the hell they want to, and they don't care.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care. I'm doing it. And, I didn't know.
And that goes with the guys, we saw a pretty good decline in the number of larger fish caught. Glendo typically has a super healthy 23 to 26 inch population.
Nice.
And we saw a decline. We had the first tournament, there was, I think, 130 less fish in that classification. And I don't think it's because our anglers weren't any better fishermen. I think that the fish are gone. And I think what really happens is, you get this guy that comes out, gets his boat on the water once or twice a year, and he whacks a good fish and he puts it in his live well. He buys a fishing license and he has the right to do that and put it in his live well, and so be it. But it is nice for those big fish to get bigger, and not just from a tournament standpoint, but it's just fun to catch big fish once in a while.
Everybody should get a chance to catch one, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And the more people that are, use a little conservation in their day, and keep those 16 to 18 inch fish.
They eat better.
They probably eat better. I mean, I don't know. I'd go with that argument too. I mean, I'm sure that whoever had this 26 incher was really happy having whatever came off of that one too. But I think bottom line is there's plenty of 16 to 18 inch fish out there that when a guy catches those, they're going to eat just fine.
Yeah. So I wanted to get, one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on right now is we had a chat last fall, and you started the first ever Wyoming Governor's Cup.
Well, I don't want to say it was the first ever, because back in '92, when Eric Whitaker started the Wyoming Walleye Circuit, he did do a Gov Cup up at Boise. Babe Winkleman was the MC. They had 192 boats. People fishing out of canoes and kayaks and pontoons and you name it, they were fishing out of it. But in the 16 years that we've ran the Stampede, we haven't run anything like that. And we're not going away. We've got 16 years behind us. The following's good. The payouts are good. The fisheries are good. And we'll probably have to throw some adjustments in there here and there, depending on how fisheries are fishing or what lakes we want to add to the rotation. But we wanted to try to develop some culture, some excitement for people to come out and be able to fish. If they want to go fish a Gov Cup in North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Montana, and add Wyoming to it, let them go fish all those Gov Cups. Yeah. Trying to schedule them all so we're not on top of each other or on on the same weekends is a little bit tough.
North Dakota.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little tight.
Yeah. So we just wanted to add something different. So, we took some of the plays out of your playbook, and we did the big Ryder Cup trophies, the cups. We did first, second, and third in those. We also added our Big Fish of the Day was sponsored this year by a guy out of Cheyenne KS Trailers. He threw in $500 a day for big fish for each big fish. And then we also did a second place big fish each day. And then we added championship rings, like Super Bowl rings. And then we also did jackets. And then we bumped up the entry fee a little bit to $620. And then we paid out what I think is really good. I don't know what your payouts are, but for 140 boat field, we paid $15,000 for first, $10,000 for second, $7,500 for third, $5,000 for fourth. And we paid down 20% of the field. So we paid all the way down to 28th place.
Wow.
Nice.
That is good payout. That's better than my payouts.
Yeah.
You know.
The entry and the team counts, I mean, definitely help with those payouts. And, we kind of ran into obviously the first year, whatever, is not going to go without any hitches. The keyboard warriors were on me pretty good on Facebook. We capped it at 140 boats. And at our first event, I had 3 spots left. And so I filled up those 3 spots that night and told everybody else in the back of the line, sorry, guys, we're full. Should have got here earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got back to Casper and checked the P.O. box on Friday. And my wife checked the P.O. box on Friday. And there was one in the P.O. box that had been post-dated on Monday the week before. And just snail mail took it forever to get here. And I felt it was only fair that guy got in, because if I would have checked the P.O. box on Friday, I would have only let 2 guys in on Friday night. And so keyboard warriors were on me. Well, what's the point of having a capped event if you're going to let more teams in? I was going to sponsor this and I was going to fish all 3 events, but now that you're not even following your own rules, I'm out. Like, okay. Of course, none of these guys, or very few of the guys, were guys that fished my tournaments. And once I explained what happened, they're like, yeah, okay, it is what it is. And I called you. I said, well, do you cap your events? Yeah, but we're always over, because there's always exceptions. And we still haven't really knocked it out of the park as to how we're going to address that issue next year. I do know that we're going to change our application process a little bit. Our goal is to have guys fish all 3 of our events. We want guys to come to the championship. Our championship is sponsored by Skeeter Boats. We've got an additional $5,000 from Skeeter thrown in the pot. We take $20 from every application leading up to this event, and we throw that into the championship as well, which is last year was about $7,500. We limit it to 60 boats, and we pay top 10 in cash. So the payouts are really nice for the top 10. And then for 10th through 20th place, we've got great gifts. We're sponsored by Burris Optics, Vortex Optics, Grizzly Coolers, Striker Clothing, a lot of good sponsors. So we put all these prize packages out on the table, and if you're 11th place, go take a pick. If you want a Burris Eliminator 6, there you go. It's all yours. You don't need a scope, and you want a pair of binoculars, or hey, you just like to have a $400 cooler, go grab a cooler. And I'm not saying that's per team, that's per individual on each team.
Wow.
I mean, so there's guys getting prize packages that are more valuable than the actual cash prizes. But one of my experiences of fishing tournaments is that, you'd get drawn or you'd win a prize, right? You'd win a gallon of oil, or you would win a Mercury prop, or you'd win a fish finder. And it's like you and your partner look back at each other and go, all right, what are we going to do with this? You want to sell it, try to split the money, or do you need it? Do you want to buy me out? And I didn't want people, I don't want anglers to go through that. So when we asked for sponsorship to get involved, we want it to be substantial. We want it to be meaningful so that each person can get something of good quality. We've got gift certificates from Max Lures, Northland Tackle, and we're talking like, $250 per angler. So this is, as good as cash, because we're going to spend the money on tackle anyways.
Yeah.
So I think, we really want people to fish our championship. And so we're trying to drive all 3 events. So what we're going to be doing next year, kind of like, I guess the MWC does, is we're going to, for the first 60 days of the year, January 1st to end of February, we're going to allow you to sign up for all 3 events. And we're going to call you a premier team. You're going to get that premier team status. That'll allow you to get into the Gov Cup. Now, guys that maybe don't want to fish the 3rd event, can't fish the 3rd event, maybe there's a wedding, whatever, we're still going to let them buy that entry so basically they can get into the Gov Cup, that money is going to be non-refundable for that third event, and their money is going to go into the pot if they don't show up either way. So what hopefully it's going to do is really push that third event up for us, whether the teams show up or not. I don't really care.
Still paying it out.
We're still paying it out to the anglers, and you know how hard it is, Kurt. Like it's hard enough to try to keep up with partner changes throughout these events, but to a guy 3 days before the event going, well, my sister's grandmother's second cousin's kid just got in a car accident and I can't make it there.
Just say I couldn't catch any fish is what I want to tell them every time.
Yeah. Well,
when you cancel the day before a tournament, you just couldn't get on fish, bud.
Well, and we kind of eliminated that too. We had a lot of guys that want to sign up on Friday night, and how it is when you're planning a tournament. You want to get your rosters done, you want to get your payouts figured out. Our cutoff is on Wednesday nights, so that gives me Thursday, Friday to get all my paperwork and all that kind of stuff done, so I can post those out on the website, so guys know what their boat numbers are, and it also takes away from that guy that says, "Man, I got into a hot bite Friday afternoon, and I want to get in this tournament," which isn't necessarily fair to the guy that signed up 3 months ago that was just going to go play the game.
Yeah, and you see that everywhere, and we used to run the Gov Cup where you could sign up at the rules meeting. It was that way when we took it over, and we tried to change it. That didn't work well. Now I don't have the problem. I mean, 2020 changed everything for the Gov Cup. We filled 1 week prior. Then it was 1 month. Then it was 3 months. Then it was March 3rd. This year was 9 days.
Right.
And next year, with the way the lake's fishing, it's going to be faster.
That's kind of what I'm hoping next year with the Gov Cup is that our guys are in the first 60 days enough guys are going to want to get into that event that they'll sign up for all three and hope that they can still make all three. It kind of makes guys get out of their bubble, right? Obviously Glendale Reservoir is phenomenal. It's got good accommodations, lots of camping, quite a few hotels. It's got Airbnbs in the area. You're close to Wheatland. You're close to Douglas. I mean, you can travel to the lake if you want to, but when you get to Boise and you get to Seminole, you're probably 35, 40 minutes to Rawlins, on a not so great road. And so if you want to stay in a hotel, I mean, you're traveling, let's just call it an hour each day. So hopefully you see the message there. Thanks, Mitch.
You want to see that catfish again, Mitch?
Hang on. Let me bring that back.
Oh God, it's a beauty. She's a beauty.
That's what you get for coming to agree to fish with me.
I know. I should have known better, but people warned me. I don't know. So I think we're going to have a lot more interest in the Gov Cup, which will probably say, well, heck, if we're going to fish the Gov Cup, why not we go ahead and fish the first event? But it's good for guys to get out of their bubble. I mean, if I hadn't traveled with all the different MWC events, I never would have been to Cass Lake or Devil's Lake or even Lake Oahe or Lake Sharp or Pier. There's a lot of places I wouldn't have been. And I mean, there's a lot of great fisheries out there, and I've got a lot of buddies that say, boy, let's go to Canada. Let's go fishing. I'm like, hey, let's go to Hawaii. Let's go to Devil's Lake. Let's go. Yeah. I mean, there's so many great places just in the States that we haven't even touched. And then when you talk about, we talk about like the World Walleye Championship, that was over on Escanaba on Mississippi River in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. And man, fishing a river system that has, wing dams, and you have to go through locks, and my wife will attest. She still
use some willow cats.
No willow cats.
None. Okay.
No, but my wife, it's one of her bitter moments with me is that our 20th anniversary was spent over on our second appearance on the World Walleye Championship.
Good for you.
Yeah,
priorities,
and we're still married after 31 years, so it was fine. But,
my second wedding anniversary, or my first wedding anniversary, was spent in Devil's Lake getting ready for a tournament. So
Well, the Escanaba, I mean, or Port was awesome because when both my wife and Rick Walter's wife Mary went, and we got an Airbnb, stayed in a house. The girls did some shopping and whatever, but during the tournament, they were able to. Well, the way we found the spot to where the fish where we ended up fishing 3 days in one spot. There was 5 boats at the tailwater of pools number 9 going into 10. My wife wanted to go through the lock system. So I'm like, all right, we'll lock down to 10, right? And we come down 10 midweek, and there's a bunch of boats fishing the tailwater. And I'm like, I don't know, let's go fish it. Well, we start throwing Hutch's spoons, and all of a sudden there's 4 and 5 pound fish coming off these Hutch's spoons. And I'm like, I got to go tell Rick. This is unbelievable. And we've had some great stories about, that body of water, because we had a fog delay one day, and the fog finally cleared out of the bay, but it didn't clear off the main lake. And when you're running 50 miles an hour on a river system with barges and another 50 boats behind you, it's a little hair raising. But
you bring. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you bring up Hutch. Did you hand line or anything of that nature out there?
No, I did visit Hutch in his basement of his house. Okay. I sell his lures at my store. They're phenomenal. They're one of the best spoons out there, hands down in my book. Great guy and a great product. But we ended up starting off with spoons, and we out here in Wyoming we use a lot of Zoom Fluke Juniors, and I had a bass. No, a Cabela's jig. It was a bee fishing jig. It was orange with black tiger stripes, 3/8 ounce, and I was throwing a baby bass Zoom Fluke and into that current and just popping it up. And we had a 20-pound bag first or second day, and
wow.
Phenomenal. And all 5 of the boats that were there the first day, all 5 of us lined back up the second day in the same order, and we all just said, "Hey, we were here. Everybody else can go pound sand. We're going to keep everybody out here." And there's a lot of hooting and hollering. They actually did tape that show. Me and Rick would not let the cameraman on our boat because we feel the curse of the cameraman every time they've been on our boat. We felt it at Devil's Lake. We had them on the boat, and we put Van Dam to shame on the bass. I mean, we were catching bass like crazy. Get her off the boat, and all of a sudden we start catching walleye. So we chose not to put the cameraman on the boat that trip. But it was great. The camaraderie between all 5 of the boats, everybody's going caw caw and making dinosaur noises. And I mean, it was some fun fishing and just great camaraderie. But the cool part was on that trip is there was a fishing barge right below that tailwater, and so they would take people from one side of the lake over across the river onto this fishing barge, and then they could fish anywhere off that barge they wanted to. Well, our wives for $20 went over there and spent most of the day watching us from the fishing barge catch fish. And when we caught a fish, our wives would be like, "Woohoo!" And then people on the shore would be going, "Yeah, great job." So even though it wasn't a great experience for her, it was a really great experience for me to actually have my wife and my partner's wife, close by and cheering us on and experiencing that with us. So it was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and that moments are unforgettable, right? Like you said, right. You lost by a penny. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, your wife got to watch you fish. Like you said, even if it wasn't a great experience for her, the moments like that, you don't forget. And you brought up the bodies of water you got to fish, but you also met how many different kinds of people in the world. I mean, if you wouldn't have came out here, we probably wouldn't be talking that. I wouldn't know who Brian Woodward is. And
well, I did know your dad when you're, and probably not when you're in diapers, but I knew your dad and you traveled with him. So I mean, I'm sure we would have crossed paths at one point or another.
But I mean, you travel and you meet the people and you make lifelong best friends out of the fishing industry. I mean, you really, truly do.
People, I mean, I get it. I still talk to Jim Randash a lot. Everybody knows Jim Randash, and he's an information guy. And so when me and Dave Rice won that Wabe tournament, he's like, he calls me. I don't know who Randash is, but he calls me. He's like, Woodward. He goes, I thought you said you don't pull cranks. I'm like, well, we do what we have to do, but we don't like doing it. We won the Glendo championship last year pulling cranks, but I mean, obviously we needed to do something different at Wad Bay than pitch jigs and bobbers, because we are catching the same dang fish. And he's like, I said, and I always have it in my boat. If I'm going to fish a tournament, I'm going to be able to pull live bait, pull cranks, pull spinners, you name it, I'm going to be able to do it. And it just worked out. But me and Jim have been close friends, in contact. We talk multiple times a year. He comes over to Glendo. Hey, what's the bite like? Or here, this is what we did. Or, hey, I'm on Randash Point and I caught this kind of quality fish. And it's just, you said, like, I can pretty much, I feel I can go anywhere in the Midwest and call somebody up and say, hey, let's go fishing, or, hey, I'm in trouble, I need a tow, or I ran out of gas. Jimbo Perry, we were up fishing the first MWC tournament, and what's at the 220 bridge? Is that Whitlock?
Whitlock's, yep, that's where he's. Brian's or Jason's overlooking it right now.
Yeah. So me and Dave Rice, we pulled double out to pier. I pulled my 31-foot fifth wheel and my 620 out there. And so we dropped that off, and we're just looking around, trying to figure out where to launch boats and all this kind of stuff. Well, I pull into Whitlock, and there's Jimbo Perry, and he's out of diesel. He's out of diesel fuel. He's all the way at the back of the boat ramp. And he's like, I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh shit, we're out of diesel. Can you give us a ride into town? I go, like, even better yet, I got 10 gallons of diesel right here in the back of my truck. He's like, you're carrying diesel? I'm like, yeah, I've been pulling double all through, South Dakota and Wyoming. And like, I didn't want to have to pull into a gas station. So yeah, I got diesel. So, we've been, he brings it up a lot, good friends, and those kind of situations are few and far hard to find,
Yeah. And that's it. Like you get to fish cool fisheries, and you get to meet like some of your best friends in your life, or guys you talk to on a daily basis.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing with, tournament fishing in general, bring a buddy, right? I mean, I look at it just kind of like an elk hunting trip. If you don't plan it, you probably won't go, but if you tell your buddy, hey, this year we're going to go get a general tag for elk, and we're going to set up a camp for a week, and we're going to do that. You make a plan, and you just find a way to make it work. If you say you're going to go fish a tournament, go fish a tournament. You might not know what you're doing. It might be the first one. You might be real leery about, well, how do I check in? Where do I check in? Where are the boats at? What's the process? But you're going to figure it out. I didn't know anything when I fished my first MWC event, and the guys are helpful. You ask a lot of questions, and then by doing that, you get to meet some people. They're like, oh, you're from Wyoming, huh? I got this artist that painted this picture behind my back, and it's cool. And the entry fee is the least expensive part of your trip. Your time, your travel, being away from your family, that costs more than anything. And I think, we hold our first event usually on Mother's Day weekend, and I got guys that call me and they're like, you're killing me, man. My wife, it's Mother's Day weekend. I can't leave my wife. And I'm like, trust me, the best thing you can do is leave your wife for Mother's Day. She would rather spend the day at home reading a book in the tub without you being around. Like, send her flowers, do it, leave her a bunch of money. I don't care. But, it hasn't slowed down our team count, but we do lose a few guys because of it. And so, I think there's a lot of great waters out there. I know for a lot of people, especially, when you start talking to guys in Minnesota, Wisconsin, getting out to even South Dakota is a haul, I fished up in Escanaba, Michigan, and it was a 23-hour drive, so you have to want to do it, and you're going to burn a couple days on both ends of it. But I think, if you get the opportunity to come out this way, I think you'll be happy with the fisheries.
Yeah,
well, tournaments are great vacations. Now, I don't care if it's the Wyoming Gov Cup, South Dakota Gov Cup, National Walleye Tour, MWC. If you've got a tournament like the championship on Devil's Lake, go up there for the weekend. Go up there for the tournament. Vacation. Stay in a hotel. Stay in a little cabin at the state park.
Well, it's definitely what you make. It's definitely what you make of it, right? I mean, because you can wear yourself out, elk hunting or whatever, doing that too. But you could be that guy that says, well, I'm going to only fish tournament hours 7 to 3, and you probably be fine. But if you're that guy that says, well, sun comes up at 5, I'm going to be on the water at 5, and I'm not going to come off till 9 o'clock, you're probably going to burn yourself out pretty quick. Also, if you're relying on a paycheck out of that tournament, you're probably not going to have fun, and you're not going to enjoy your tournament. The way I look at it is, you're going out there and competing against the fish, not the fishermen, right? every day we get on the water, we're competing against the fish. Where are they? Where are they going to bite? Are they going to bite a worm today? Or do I have to go with the leech? Do I have to go with the slip bobber? Can I pitch crankbaits? Can I pitch jerk baits? Can I pitch sweat paddle tails? You've got so much to consider anyways, and a lot of bodies of water to cover. Don't stress yourself out about it. Just go fish, have fun. It's no different than going to the casino, for
Right.
$200 a day or $100 per person per day. You're going to spend that in a casino a lot faster than you are going to be spending on time on the water, and you get a chance of maybe hitting a big progressive on a slot machine, but you also have the same progressive on catching, a 30-inch fish and winning a tournament. And I'd rather spend that $100 a day, 8 hours as opposed to an hour in a casino.
And the people you meet.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's the locals in Wyoming or the big shots in Wyoming, you go to the Gov Cup and you've got guys like Hoyer there, Minky there. There's so many awesome people, and whether it's Mike McClellan that might be there watching, or whoever. I think it makes a great vacation, whether you're fishing the tournament or not. If you're there as a spectator, it's good family time. And sorry, I don't mean to change the subject, but have you noticed the fly that's bothering Kurt? Have you ever watched?
Yeah.
Have you ever watched Craig Ferguson and he's got that Jay Leno fly?
Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't have something that you can just throw on Kurt's face or something.
Yeah, it's like flying at my nose right now. Like,
can you throw a virtual fly swatter at him or something?
Yeah. Well, I wish. I'm going to be prepared for that now. I'm going to do it. I see we're nearing an hour. So I was out on Oahe today, and I found the old man on Oahe. I don't know if they've named this tree or not, but this thing's been floating in Oahe. I can't count the years because I don't know if it's the same tree, but yes, we did look at it on site imaging. Now, here's the crazy thing. We were looking out 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's a big tree.
So look how big that tree was below the water. And here again, I'm guessing it's cottonwood. I would think. There's no way there's a willow that big, but.
Hey, Kurt, isn't there a chance that you and I hit one of those at a?
I think we fished by that. I saw that in the pre-loads, and I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure me and Woody fished right by that thing.
Yeah, didn't we have to come in on limp mode?
Yeah.
We had to come in on limp mode on that one tournament. We lost that lower unit.
Well, it's making its way down because I know I don't.
Good.
I think it was up by Swan Creek somewhere in that northern region.
Yeah, it's about the right time frame. 2 years to get there. It's probably fine.
Yeah. So here's the deal. It was south of Swiftbird, so it's moved quite a bit, and it has been out in the middle of the lake, and I find it intriguing. I wish we could have spent more time, but just the fact that is the entire thing underneath the water, and and look at the fish.
I was just gonna say, I'm not even looking at the thing. I'm looking at the fish stacked up around it.
Oh, you should have seen the fish that were stacked in the willows. I should have shared some of those pictures because they're
spinner baits, baby, spinner baits.
Yep. Yeah, pretty awesome. So, Brian, it's been great to have you on. I see we're just a hair over an hour here. Probably we could talk for another hour because I really wanted to ask what Wyoming thinks about live sonar, but maybe we'll have to save that for another day. But give us a quick answer on that one.
Our reservoirs fish a lot different than a lot of your bodies of water, and I think that live imaging particularly helps the guys on those main lake points that are big and that hunting searching function there. I'm not going to say that it doesn't help our guys here as well, but we're typically fishing a lot shallower stuff, a lot more weed beds and weed edges. And I know guys are using it and they're seeing fish. But from my experience as a tournament director, I have not seen a guy that last year was sitting in 105th place, picked up live sonar or live imaging, and all of a sudden it's a top 10 team.
Right. No.
Right. So I'm not saying that that won't help them get there or move up the ladder a little bit. I personally have Hummingbird Live. I see fish, but it's not my style of fishing. I'm still the guy that wants to go to an area. I want to work that area pretty hard. I'm going to fan cast around it. Maybe I'm making more casts than Hoyer. He's casting twice. I'm casting 30 times, whatever the case is. He's catching bigger fish. I'm catching 15s. But I don't see that it's been a huge deal breaker. I will tell you, we have talked about it, and I think from a tournament standpoint, especially on a body of water that doesn't have a slot limit like ourselves, I think limiting the overs would definitely help take that live imaging out of the equation. If you say, you can only have one fish over 23 or whatever whatever that magic number is, because we don't have a slot, that makes a guy make a decision, right? The other thing that has come up with a couple of these national tournaments in a pro-am scenario is that maybe the pros catching both of those overs, and one of the things when I fished my first pro-am as an amateur is that both of the pros let me fish. I was running their program, but they let me fish, and I've talked to quite a few guys that have got on boats with these guys that are running live imaging, and they're like, you manage the bottom bouncer rods, and if I catch a fish, you net the fish, and when I net the fish, you take the fish out of the net, and then they go and grab another rod and they catch another over while that other fish is still being taken out of a net. And I think that's important that the pros need to understand too, is that you can't be buying off the co-anglers, right? And they're fishing because they want to learn something too. Mm-hmm. Give them the opportunity to fish. If they're not fishing bottom bouncers the way you like them to, explain why. If you need it on a 45-degree angle, or why are you running a 3-ounce bottom bouncer instead of a 1-ounce? I think that's important to, even from the grassroots standpoint of getting people to want to fish tournaments, is that they go out and have an opportunity to fish with a pro, but they're not learning anything. They're learning that the pro is the boss. And I'd be interesting to see how they handle that in the future with, because I think what's important is that, that pro should be like, here, get up here. This is what we're looking at. This is the direction I need you to cast it. This is the cadence that I want you to throw that jig and wrap. Let them have that opportunity to catch a big fish. And again, you got to put everybody on a level playing field. And that's, as tournament directors, we try to make things as even as we can. We're having a battle out here in Wyoming with creek chubs, and I know it's a battle in lots of parts of the country, is that they're not just readily available. You normally just can't go to your 7-Eleven and, grab creek chubs. You can get fatheads, no problem. But, we're looking into running an artificial only tournament, possibly see what the demand is on that. We're also thinking about, in the future, if there's a need to outlaw creek chubs and just go to statewide minnows where every bait dealer can get those, and then everybody's on the same playing field. But trying to regulate that on the water is a challenge, and for me to look at everybody's bait bucket or live well or hidden compartment in a boat, that's not on our cards right now. So the live imaging, it's an issue, but a lot of people say, well, it's not fair because not everybody can afford one. We spend a lot more money on other dumb stuff that, we certainly can save a few pennies, put it together and buy a Garmin Panoptic, bundle so you can ice fish with it and put it in your boat and run a system there. So
I was paddle fishing this May or April in Chamberlain, and my buddy called me and says, you should probably do a non-live scope division, the Gov Cup, a side pot. And literally the next day I'm on the White River, and a guy comes by in like a 12-foot Lund, and he had a live scope hanging off the side of it. I took a video and said, really? Everybody can afford a live scope.
I literally have boats fishing our tournaments that the number of electronics, lithium batteries are 3 times the value of their boat. So it's just, where do you want to put your money at? And again, a lot of times tournament fishing is a big boy sport, and it's not cheap. It's an expensive hobby. It really is. You're not going to make a living at it. None of us out there are Tiger Woods. We're not getting big endorsements from these companies to pay our salaries. We all have jobs, and we still want to keep it fun. So I don't think it's anywhere close to in our future of outlawing it. You know, I know Montana had a hard time filling up their Gov Cup with, you know, a handful of guys that are kind of fighting the live scope imaging and letting pros come fish their tournaments. But heck, these pros are competing against locals. I mean, if a local doesn't have the upper hand, then shame on you, you know?
Yeah, right.
But the more information you give these guys, they're going to beat you at your own game. So stop giving them information.
You just look at this. Hoyer and Minky fished the Gov Cup together last year and ended up like 13th.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, Dewey, who fishes the National Walleye Trail, who's won a couple Gov Cups, ended up 20th. I mean,
yeah,
they can be beaten.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they are good. They are a couple of the best sticks in the country, but they can be beaten, and they're coming to your home waters.
You know, every dog has their day, and you know, I mean, when it happens, it usually happens real fast, right? And, you know, you pull into a spot, and you know, you've caught good fish all day, but then all of a sudden you're like, wham wham, there's 2 26s, and you're like, okay, we're on this. You know, this is good. You know, there's no decision being made. Like, we're keeping 26-inch fish. And I fished some events where you do have that slot tournament, and without having weigh boats on the water that are monitoring and watching whether guys are throwing back fish and culling fish out of live wells, to me that's tough. You know, I mean, of course, you know, if a guy's going to win an award and hanging on his wall, and he's going to look at it every day going, yeah, I cheated at that event. You know, yeah, we culled a whole bunch of fish, and that's why we got that placement. And we did this at this tournament. If they can live with that, they can live with it. You know, they got to sleep with themselves at night, and that's not me, you know, and I think that's not most anglers. And I think most anglers want to go out there and compete as fair chase as they can. And I like to think that there's less cheating out there than what people would think. But
I hope so.
I don't think the live scope imaging I don't think it's going away. I see.
No.
Didn't they just pass something in bass or something like? Oh, I think I heard on today that they're changing the regulations in the bass world. The number of inches of display screens you can have. I think it's 160 inches, which means you can have 5 12-inch screens.
Right.
Well, if you go on YouTube and watch Zaldane, where he went around all the boats and guys had well over 100, I think it was Brian Schmidt that had 4 Garmin 12s on the console of his bass boat. Yeah. It looked like he was sitting down into a race car simulator.
And I think, and what they're playing with that game is they're not saying that live scope's a problem. They're saying that all these graphs are hindering for safety issues.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I might buy like today we went out fishing. We used live scope. We had 5 screens, a 15 and a 12, a 12 and a 10 and a 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're fishing the live, and we're just having it on the whole time. And we're just running over piles of fish. We hit spot lock, pulled out the jigs, started jigging. Those fish wanted nothing to do with the jig. So live taught us today that we're going nowhere jigging fish. We went back to bouncers.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
You know, so
again, you have to learn
that.
But there's a huge learning curve on all this stuff, right? I mean, even just reading regular sonar, you know, people can't just determine whether that's a rock on the bottom or a fish hugging the bottom tight. And the same problem with live scope. There's a lot of education that has to be done. You know, I would love, you know, somebody to come and just sit on my boat and really teach me and maybe fine tune my graphs to make sure everything's done right. But it's not my style of fishing at this point, and I do fine, and I'm not competing at this point. So I don't feel like I really have to have it. And it's a fun, cool tool, but I don't think we're not looking at doing anything with it.
That's good. You know, it's another view. You know, today I'm in my buddy Kirk's boat, and I just said, so do you mind if I tweak your 2D sonar?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have at it. Because I'm always afraid to tweak on somebody else's machine.
Sure.
And it's like, he's like, what the hell did you do? We're seeing everything. I'm like, Kirk, I tweaked it a little bit. You know, I reduced the surface clarity and made things a little dirtier, but clean things. And you could see everything today, and it was amazing. So you spend a little bit of time, and I don't care if it's 2D sonar. 2D sonar played a part in our fishing today.
Sure.
So did some side imaging. So did some down imaging. And yes, we relied on the live to tell us, you know, what kind of fish. We could tell that they were younger, active fish, and it was a ton of fun. So, you know, we came home with 8, and that's, you know, that's all we were going to do anyway.
We came home with 15, so we're good.
Well, there you go.
I worked today, guys. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's right. Where were you at, Kurt? I can't remember.
I was at work.
Sorry.
Sorry, not
I'm going to
sorry.
pop this up one more time here real quick as it's already about an hour and 15 minutes. So Wyoming Walleye Stampede, the Gov Cup coming up for you guys when?
We had the Gov Cup 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Our boys in tournament out of Shoshone between Thermopolis and Riverton. That is coming up on the 29th and 30th, and we are taking applications all the way up till next Wednesday.
Okay, fantastic. Brian, it's been great. It's been a ton of fun. Frankly, I think we could do another 45 minutes, but maybe we'll save it for another time.
Sounds good.
All right.
Hey,
thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Take
Thanks
care.
for coming.
Oh, yeah, look at it.